All right, so welcome to our week 2 recap, and this is going to cover the second lecture from our first unit, which is about explaining crime and criminal behavior. As always with these recaps, I recommend that you play them advance by yourself, see how you do, and then come back and watch this video to see the logic behind the questions and where you might sort of improve those notes and your sort of thoughts. So let's go ahead and start. The first question is asking for the distinction between um, two sets of theories, the classical and the neoclassical. And we talk about these in the classical school. We talk about these with people like Beccaria and Bentham. And so the key difference between neoclassical and classical is that neoclassical believes in the existence of mitigating circumstances. All of the other answer choices are things that both theories believe in. That, choice is what causes crime, and that crime is a rational process, or that they use the pain and pleasure principle, which says we only do behaviors that give us more pleasure than pain. So neoclassical is a bit different from classical in that it believes that there are mitigating circumstances for crime that sort of impact how we make decisions and impact that choice. All right, so moving on, the second question, again, is sort of referencing back to some of the early history within how we're explaining criminal behavior. And they're sort of first steps into the scientific study of crime and criminology specifically. And so the person that really leads this charge, and his work later doesn't sort of pan out, but the scientific method remains, was Lombroso. If you recall from lecture, Lombroso talked about these ideas of atavism or evolutionary throwbacks. And he employed the scientific method to test the theory. He found initial evidence, but later on his theory gets refuted. The other people involved are all part of criminology. Darwin sort of lays the foundation for the study of science as a cause of crime. Freud talks about more the sort of psychological impact, really focusing on the psychoanalytic approach. You'll sort of recall that id, ego, and superego. And then Beccaria, we just talked about, was in the classical theories. The third question sort of brings in that work of Freud, and it's asking about which part of that unconscious mind represents our desires and conflicts. And so when we're talking about desires and conflicts in our unconscious, we're talking about, of course, the id. The superego represents our sort of morality and values, and then the ego is more of our conscious mind that balances between the id and superego. And obviously, ego is a type of waffle. Now, questions 4 and 5 are really focusing on getting you to identify types of theories and what they focus on. And so we have a lot of sociological theories of crime. So question 4 asks about which one focuses on the impact of neighborhoods. And of these options, the best answer really is social disorganization. If you remember from lecture, we talked about Shaw and McKay's study of Chicago, and they found that regardless of who lived in these neighborhoods, there's really always high crime in the neighborhoods. And so it's these neighborhood factors that really lead to crime, not necessarily the people themselves. Differential association is more one of those learning-based theories and not so much about the impact of a place. Strain could be about impact of neighborhoods, but it's more about sort of this disjunction between your aspirations and your expectations. And then self-control focuses on why don't we commit crime, basically with the idea being that we don't commit crime because we possess a level of self-control that doesn't allow us to take that risk. So question 5 is very similar to question 4, again, which sociological theory, but this time it's looking at the impact of subcultures. And of these, the best answer is the theories of cultural deviance. So cultural deviance theories included work by Selin. We talked about Anderson's Code of the Street, where basically a subculture within the US exists that leads to subcultural values being promoted over mainstream culture. And so when people are a part of that subculture, the laws and rules and norms of the subculture supersede the laws and norms and rules of wider culture. Social learning is about sort of how we learn to engage in crime, similar to how we learn any other behavior. It talks about punishment and reinforcement. General strain theory is talking about how we sort of can experience negative emotions, and then our reactions to negative emotions can sort of lead to crime. And then labeling theory focuses on the impact that being labeled a criminal can have for future crime, or that secondary deviance. So what I really want you to sort of focus on as you're studying for your first unit quiz and you're thinking, oh, there's so many theories, what should I be focused on? So a few things I would say for this second lecture. So try to focus on things like being able to recognize the important people with the theories. So that way, if you're asked a question and you see a name in there, you know who is being discussed. And also understand sort of the broad concepts of these theories in terms of what they focus on. Similar to what you saw in questions 4 and 5, when we're looking at sort of broader concepts in terms of what these theories focus on. Later, future courses, if you continue on in criminal justice studies, will go deeper into these theories, and especially within criminology. So, with that, that's the end of our recap for our second lecture, as well as the last information you'll need before taking your first unit quiz. So good luck studying, and hopefully you do